Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 2, Other Heroes of Chaos. Chapter 149, Third Young Miss Hua. It was dark in Chu capital. Lanterns had been raised on both sides of the streets. Hua Xianji's horse carriage returned to the city and made a beeline for the Pan's residence. Giving instructions to those in attendance at the sides, she simply said she wanted to have a girl-to-girl late-night chat with Zhayu, and so she sent someone to the palace to convey the message that she would be coming back later. Commandery Princess Zhayu's path to marriage had been fraught with difficulties. The Marquis of Helion initially had his heart set on Yao Wenyu, and later Xiao Qiye when the Empress Dowager had taken matters into her own hands. But in the end, neither of them worked out. The Marquis of Helion found it rather humiliating. He felt that Commandery Princess Zhayu was not getting any younger. What's more, she was the legitimate daughter of the Fei clan born of the principal wife. It was inadvisable to drag the matter any further, and it just so happened that Han Cheng came calling on them at that time, so he had the Commandery Princess Zhayu betrothed to a lad from the Han clan. But this marriage did not come to fruition as well because the Marquis heir, Fei Shi, was an idler and he was very much aware that the son from the Han clan was one too. In fact, that lad was even worse than that Han Jin. Fei Shi held him in contempt, finding him unworthy and undeserving of his elder sister, so he brought some men over to create a big ruckus, forcibly ripping this marriage plan to shreds. The Marquis of Helion could not control his son. Left without a choice, he pondered over several options, oscillating between them before deciding on Pan Yi, the second son of a concubine from the Pan clan. He was Pan Lin's younger brother. Both clans knew each other intimately and they were both similarly part of the 8 great clans. Fei Shi carefully observed this potential elder brother-in-law for a period of time, and only then did Commandery Princess Zhayu finally marry. Pan Yi was a scholarly and refined man who originally held the post of director of the Bureau of Waterways and Irrigation under the Ministry of Works. Later, Pan Xiangji safely made it through the public ditches case, and Pan Lin took over Wei Huigo's post in the Ministry of Revenue. Subsequently, Pan Yi was promoted, too. He was transferred back to the Pan clan's hometown of Dan City to serve as the commandant of Dan City. This person was fond of reading, and he had a deep respect for Yao Wenyu's talents and learning. That was why he had accompanied his wife when the latter went to pay Yao Wenyu a visit. Pan Yi was originally waiting at home when Pan Lin just so happened to get off court session. Both brothers were talking in the front hall when they heard someone came calling from behind. Pan Lin was now in charge of the Ministry of Revenue. As plenty had happened in Chu capital after spring, the appointment document from the imperial court had yet to be issued, so he still carried the title of vice minister. He was taken aback after hearing the servant's report and questioned, "The third young Miss Hua wants to see me." Hua Xianji had yet to be married, and she was the favorite of the Empress Dowager. The guards accompanying her in and out of the palace could not be underestimated. It was difficult for any male who were outsiders to get a glimpse of her appearance. Even if Pan Xiangji wanted to see her, he had to be summoned. Pan Lin did not know what was going on, and he did not dare to dally either, so he hastily got up with Pan Yi and hurried over. The moment Pan Yi entered the courtyard, he saw his wife standing under the eaves weeping. There was also a physician inside the room. Pan Lin was shocked, thinking that Hua Xianji had been injured, so he hurried over to ask, "Younger sister-in-law, what's happened?" Commandery Princess Zhayu cried so hard that both of her eyes were red. She clutched her handkerchief but before she could say a word, she was racking with sobs once again. She covered her face and turned away, and Pan Yi rushed over to protect her, asking as he pulled her along, "My dear, what's going on?" Hua Xianji said from within the room, "The vice minister and the commandant are both elder brothers of mine, so there's no need to observe the formalities so scrupulously. Please come in to talk." Pan Lin felt relieved when he heard Hua Xianji's gentle voice, which did not sound like she was injured. He exchanged glances with Pan Yi and hesitated for a moment, then went ahead to lift the curtain and enter. There was a screen set up in the room, and Hua Xiangji was sitting in the seat of honor. Both men kneeled and greeted in unison. These humble subjects pay their respects to the third young miss. Hua Xiangji said, "Brothers, please rise." Through the beaded curtain at his side, Pan Lin saw a physician inside, so he asked, "Who is injured?" After a moment of silence, Hua Xiangji answered, "Truth be told, the man lying inside is none other than the Grand Secretary's beloved disciple, Yao Wenyu." Pan Yi promptly exclaimed in delight, "It's Yuan Zhou." But his expression changed abruptly the moment the words left his mouth. Anxious, he asked, "Oh, no. Did he get hurt on Mount Bodhi? I heard that the bridle path on Mount Bodhi has been in a state of disrepair for many years and is accident-prone on rainy days." Commandery Princess stood at the side and wiped her tears. "How is elder cousin injured because of the bridle path?" "He was hijacked and robbed." Sorrow overwhelmed her at this point. "Those legs. What is he going to do in the future?" Many thoughts flashed through Pan Lin's mind in an instant. He was presently at the critical juncture of a promotion. Once the appointment document to promote him to Minister of Revenue had been issued, he would only have to wait a few years for the inspection's appraisals to catch up and cancel out the impeachments he had received during the public ditches case, and his future would be a bright one paved with unlimited possibilities. Yao Wenyu's identity was special, and there was a political undercurrent surging through the imperial court at present. Pan Lin initially had no wish to be a part of it, lest he was deemed to be a member or supporter of one of the factions. However, he respected highly Anji. Pan Lin paused for only a moment before he said, "Mount Bodhi is on the outskirts of the city, and there are patrol squads inside and outside of Chu capital. Yuan Zhuo's meeting with a mishap there is by no means a trivial matter. Third young miss, please tell me the details first." He did not evade the issue nor begged off the matter, so Hua Xiangji knew she had been right to find him. Pan Lin had a bad temper, and the only friend he had to have fun with together was Fei Shi. The one he could not deign to deal with the most was Xue Xiaoyi. Back then, after the public ditches case, Xiao Qiye had hosted a banquet after being conferred a noble title, and Pan Lin had gone at his invitation. Humiliated in every way possible by Xue Xiaoyi during the feast, Pan Lin had made a vow that even if he were to starve to death in the future, he would never sit at the same table as the Xue clan. From then on, he did not interact or socialize any further with the Xue clan. Xue Xiaozhuo was now at the height of power in Chu capital because of his support to the heir apparent to the throne, and even so, Pan Lin had never paid him a visit. Xiao Qiye helped the Pan clan out of their predicament back then, saving Pan Xiangji from being put to death by Wei Huigu during the public ditches case, and the Chu capital public ditches blueprint that Pan Lin had repaid him with later went on to become the key that helped Jiao Tianya and the rest to escape from Chu capital. Later, Xiao Qiye was trapped in an encirclement by Han Cheng, who meant to kill him. He bore the charge of plotting to murder Emperor Tianchen, and despite that, Pan Lin did not hurry over himself to draw a clear line between them. His father, Pan Xiangji, was a fence-sitter who swayed wherever the wind blew, but Pan Lin could stand up to being called upright. Hua Xiangji gave him an account of their encounter with Yao Wenyu in a hushed tone. Eventually, she said, "Would the vice minister be willing to hear a few words from me?" Pan Lin answered, "This humble subject is all ears." Hua Xiangji looked slightly out of the corner of her eye at that beaded curtain. A moment later, she said, "The storm brewing in Chu capital is currently unstoppable. The trouble Yuan Zhou came face to face with today is by no means a coincidence. The vice minister knows better than me about the affairs of the imperial court. The Grand Secretary's remonstration by death will be a matter of regret for Great Zhou through the ages. Yuan Zhou is not only the Grand Secretary's beloved disciples but also the Yao clan's beloved son. His reputation is now in tatters because of the Imperial Academy incident, but his talents and learning still remain, and his moral integrity still exists. His resolution and ambition will be all the stronger after going through this tribulation, and there is no reason he can't make a comeback in the future and lead the literati of the world to recreate the glory of the Imperial Academy. Pan Lin said nothing. After a long silence, Hua Xianji continued, Yuan Zhou must leave Chu capital as soon as possible after tonight. I'm about to marry far away to Qidong, and it'd be inconvenient for me to come and go freely. Although I have an imperial palace rank, I can't openly send him out of the capital without it creating a fanfare. At this point, Hua Xianji rose to her feet and slowly kneeled to bow to Pan Lin across the screen. Pan Lin's face turned pale. He strode a step forward and said, "This won't do. Third young miss, please rise quickly." Hua Xianji kowtowed and said, Yuan Zhou is blessed to have been successively taught by wise teachers in this life. I've read all of his essays. The heir apparent to the throne has just been established and the Hanlin Academy is now an empty shell. The tripartite balance of power with Anti at the lead cannot last for long, and Kong Qiu can barely fend for himself. I may be a woman, but I know that outstanding men of talents are hard to find. She paused for a moment, then solemnly continued, Qinzi, please. She addressed Pan Lin by his courtesy name, saying it from the bottom of her heart. Pan Lin could not help but look ashamed to see the extent that Hua Xianji was willing to go to save Yao Wenyu. He hurriedly said, Third young miss, please get up. I value Yuan Zhuo's talents. This is what we ought to do, to begin with. Tomorrow morning, Yuan Zhou will follow my younger sister-in-law out of Chu capital and rest up in Dan City first. After he recovers from his injuries, he can decide what to do on his own. Hai Lianji came to his mind at this point. Thus, he continued, although the Grand Secretary and some of us do not see eye to eye in politics, I still hold him in high esteem. How gallant is it for a civil minister to remonstrate with his death? I ought to lend a helping hand, even if it's only for the Grand Secretary's sake. Hua Xianji continued, the other party must already know about Yuan Zhuo's escape from death today. To be on the safe side, I'd like to ask the Vice Minister to think of a way to pull the wool over their eyes. Pan Lin answered, I already have an idea in mind. It's already getting late now. I can't stay any longer. Hua Xianji stood up and let the maidservant support her as she went over to the side of the beaded curtains. She looked at Yao Wenyu inside, his face was as white as a sheet. In the end, she said nothing and took her leave. 2 hours after Hua Xianji's departure, a corpse wrapped in a straw mat was sent out through the back doors of the Pan's residence. Those in the outer courtyard inquiring about it did not know the details. All they heard was that it was a beggar that the commandery Princess Zheyu brought back from outside who had died of sickness in the middle of the night. The pursuing troops who had been crouching in wait for many hours followed all the way to the burial grounds to examine the corpse. The leader found out that the body fit Yao Wenyu's physique perfectly. Even the wounds from his broken legs were identical. The only thing was that the face of the corpse was disfigured. However, the bite marks on his lips were similar. Not daring to dally, the leader withdrew with his men back to the residence to make his report. ******. The next day, Commandery Princess Zheyu and Pan Yi departed for Dan City. She had just given birth to a child, and there were so many nannies and maidservants accompanying her that just the carriage alone numbered in the dozens. Pan Lin went to attend morning court. As he stood at the foot of the stairs to wait, he saw Kong Qiu and Sen Yu standing in front. Worried that there were people in the imperial court watching, he did not go forward. Nowadays, the heir apparent to the throne rose at the hour of yin and attended classes at the hour of Mao. The participants in the classics colloquium put together by the Grand Secretariat were all carefully handpicked scholars and academics from the Hanlin Academy, and the morning classes would not be finished before midday. Meanwhile, the Empress Dowager was still the one holding court behind the screen. Li Jianting merely switched from attending classes in the Shui's residence to attending classes in the palace. As long as the Grand Secretariat did not pass the vote, she would have to continue to be a student. The Ministry of Rites had long been making preparations for the enthronement, but the grand ceremony now seemed light years away with Kong Qiu and the rest suppressing it. Xue Xiaozuo was still teaching Li Jianting. Li Jianting did not have the authority to participate in government and political affairs, although she had the right to attend court and listen in. She slept very little every day. After morning classes, she would take a short nap, then it would be the Grand Secretariat Council led by Kong Qiu and Xue Xiaozuo in the afternoon. All matters of the 6 ministries, regardless of significance, had to be reported by the Grand Secretariat. Li Jianting rarely spoke up as they stood and deliberated over those matters, but her attitude was respectful and prudent. Whether it was morning classes or the councils, she would always arrive before the ministers and stand deferentially under the eaves of Mingli Hall to await them. Kong Qiu and Sen Yu initially disliked Li Jianting, but even they had to concede that Li Jianting's attitude was sincere enough. Her desire to learn was far more evident than Li Jianheng's. Pan Lin prepared to board the carriage after he left the court. Just as he was about to lower the curtains, he saw Xue Xiaozuo walking out of the palace gates with another person. The two men's eyes met for an instant. Pan Lin nodded calmly and managed with some effort to bow partially to him. Only then did he let down the curtain of his carriage. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Qiao Tianya shut the window, making a slight noise. Yao Wenyu woke up. It was as if he had just stepped out from the shaking carriage, the stifling heat was everywhere. He turned his eyes and saw Qiao Tianya. Qiao Tianya said, "It's now the 3rd quarter of the hour of yin, you can sleep for a little longer." Yao Wenyu said expressionlessly, "Having awoken from such a dream, I'm not too keen to return to it." Qiao Tianya poured tea and took a sip, then raised his cup at Yao Wenyu. "Want a drink?" After a moment of silence, Yao Wenyu said, "Tea is tasteless. Change it to wine. You have yet to recover from your injuries. It's inadvisable for you to drink wine." As Qiao Tianya spoke, he took down the wine at the side of his waist, shook it a few times, and twisted it open to drink it himself. "I'll drink it for you. You can watch." After Qiao Tianya was done drinking, Yao Wenyu said, "Excellent wine." The bangs on Qiao Tianya's forehead slipped down and covered his eyes. His stubble, which had grown out recently, had yet to be shaved clean. On hearing Yao Wenyu, he stroked it a couple of times and said, "Wine that costs a few strings of copper coins can't really be considered excellent. If you get better, I'm willing to spend tens of taels of silver to let you taste real, excellent wine." The corner of Yao Wenyu's lips shifted slightly. Qiao Tianya leaned against the table and looked at him. "The military craftsman from Libei will arrive in a few days. I can go out with you to appreciate the autumn scenery of Tse province." Yao Wenyu's smile faded. He looked out of the window. There was the tinkling sound of the wind chimes under the eaves again. He was quiet for a very long time before he said, "May I trouble you to ask the vice commander to prepare a generous gift on my behalf for the grand wedding between the Hua and Qi clan tomorrow. Third young Miss Hua saved my life. Please thank her on my behalf, too. No need to tell her anything else. Just mention that I'm fine." Qiao Tianya answered in the affirmative. Yao Wenyu's gaze relaxed. He said, "Let's play the guqin." When Shen Zequan got up, he heard the faint sound of the 7-stringed guqin from the courtyard. Fei Shen teased, "This Qiao Tianya is truly a deep one with hidden talents." Shen Zequan tilted his head and said, "The Qiao clan fell into decline, and all the delicate sensibilities he possessed as a young master vanished along with it. The most difficult time was during his exile, when he had to fight for food with stray dogs and take care of his elder sister-in-law at the same time. All that he has left today is that 7-stringed guqin of his. He cleans and caresses it every day. He cherishes it very much, so much that he never plays it for others. This is his pride." Fei Sheng had seen that 7-stringed guqin before. Not even Ding Tao dared to touch it. He did not understand this bit of pride, but he did not speak up to vilify it. He had worked together with Qiao Tianya for many years. Although he had been wanting to take Xiao Tianya's place all this while from Chu capital to Tse province, he was still nevertheless willing to acknowledge Xiao Tianya's capabilities. End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 2, Other Heroes of Chaos. Chapter 150, Treacherous Minister. Due to the recent death of Emperor Tianchen, it was just customary for the marriage between the Hua and Qi clans to be postponed. However, Xiao Qiyi rebelled his way out of Chu capital. Since Chu capital needed to ask favors from Qidong, the Empress Dowager and the Grand Secretariat mulled over the matter numerous times before they eventually decided to marry Hua Xianji off in the 7th month. The Empress Dowager went all out this time, and the dowry she prepared for Hua Xianji spanned more than 10 li. Arrangements made by the Ministry of Rites were all done in accordance with the wedding protocols for an imperial princess. The ceremonial guards of honor sending her off were personally led by Han Cheng himself, and there were countless wet nurses and maidservants following along in her retinue. Hua Xianji boarded the horse carriage. Just as it was about to depart, the Empress Dowager took 2 steps after it and almost called out to her. But she had to be mindful of her image and uphold her dignity after all, so she could only hold on to Madame Liu Xiang's arm and muttered softly as the eastern pearls by her ears swayed. "My little darling." The ceremonial guards of honor left Chu capital and headed for Qidong along Chuanzhen's public roads, during which they would pass by Cha province. Han Cheng was initially worried that the bandits from Cha province would try to rob them, so he specially brought along men from the 8 great training divisions, but the journey was unexpectedly uneventful. Luo Mu even sent over his congratulatory gifts when they passed by. They continued to travel south, where Qi Ziyan was already waiting for them within Qidong's borders. Speaking of this Qi Ziyan, Han Cheng's horse stuck close to the carriage as he spoke to Hua Xianji with the carriage curtain between them. "Third young miss hasn't met her before, right?" A soft sound of affirmation rose from within. Han Cheng loved flaunting his seniority. On hearing her answer, he perked up and said, "Let this old subject share some trivial information with the third young miss. Although Qi Ziyan is a woman, she is not easy to get along with. The third young miss typically resides in the inner palace, so you must have not known how ferocious she looks every year she enters the capital. The Ministry of Revenue was in a tight spot during the Xian era, and yet she dared to command her soldiers to obstruct His Excellency Wei Sedan for the military salaries for the Qidong troops. However, the Ministry of Revenue genuinely could not afford to pay up. Left without a choice, she associated herself with the ruffians who were also loan sharks in Chu capital and hung out with them in the streets. Hua Xianji had only seen Qi Ziyan through a screen before. In that feast of 100 officials where all the civil ministers and military generals were men, Qi Ziyan was a special case. She did not stand out much during her early years in Qidong. Before Qi Xiu handed over his commander seal, everyone was speculating about which of her brothers would take over. After the expedition to rescue Qi Xiu, Qi Ziyan was first denied entry to the capital. The imperial court dragged the matters on for several months on the grounds that her military achievements were still pending investigation. Then, there was the Dragon Terrace fiasco when the day of her conferment drew closer. Even with the backing of the Empress Dowager, Qi Ziyan merely took over Qi Xiu's commander seal and did not inherit Qi Xiu's title. In other words, every battle that Qi Ziyan fought today only built up prestige for Qidong and not for herself. If she did not get married in this life, she would continue to be considered a daughter of Qi even after retiring from the front lines, with no official title to her name. Conversely, her brothers would be set for life as long as they beget sons the soonest possible. Han Cheng was still talking, but Hua Xianji seemed to have already fallen asleep inside the carriage. Han Cheng gradually felt bored and stopped talking in awkward embarrassment. The ceremonial guards of honor traveled until the hour of U when a streak of red suddenly emerged on the horizon. Horses' hoofs thundered in unison amidst the billowing waves of heat, revealing the light cavalry that stretched far into the distance, all dressed in red robes. The military flag of Qidong fluttered in the wind, like a dragon soaring straight for them, while a storm of yellow sand surged forth and slapped Han Cheng's entire face full of dust. Qi Wei took the lead and dismounted his horse, brandishing the flag as he bellowed, "Welcome!" The light cavalry behind him got off their horses and simultaneously went down on one knee, their armors clanging resoundingly as they raised their arms and shouted in chorus, "We extend our respectful welcome to the madam." These two thunderous roars left the palace maids from Chu capital so shaken that their hearts went pounding, even Han Cheng almost clutched at his chest. Beating away the dust, he knitted his brows and asked, "Where's the commander?" The sound of horse hooves circled over towards them, then that red figure was already right before the horse carriage. Before Han Cheng could stop her, Qi Zuyan lifted the curtain with the sheath of her blade and tilted her head to peer inside. Hua Xianji had yet to have her head covered with a veil, and there was a golden jade phoenix coronet perched on her head as she looked at Qi Zuyan in shock, her chest pounding hard. She did not have a clue what Qi Zuyan was trying to do. "Yo!" Qi Zuyan greeted her. "Xiao Niang." Shocked, Han Cheng hurriedly stepped forward to close the carriage curtain. He could not help but rebuke, "We have yet to arrive in Qiang Commandery, so how can the commander-in-chief simply lift the third young miscarriage curtain? Just taking a look." Rebuffed, Qi Zuyan retracted her hand and said, "How many times have you taken a break during the journey? According to the estimated time, you should have arrived yesterday." Han Cheng followed after Qi Zuyan's horse and answered, "It's a long journey, and it's hard to guarantee that nothing will happen if we are in too much of a hurry. I thought the commander-in-chief would be waiting to receive us at the southern side of Cha province, but in the end, we didn't see you even after all that waiting. I, myself have only just arrived from Bianjun, so I don't have much time to spare." As Qi Zuyan spoke, she looked back and asked Han Cheng, "Why are you getting off your horse?" Han Cheng looked around the place. "It's already the hour of you now, it should be here." Qi Zuyan pointed to the east with her horsewhip and said, "Continue on your way for a little further and you'll be able to reach Sijun Commandery at the hour of high. There's a bridle path in Sijun, and the road to Qiang Commandery will be a tad smoother. Get back on your horse." Han Cheng had been on the move for an entire day and he was very exhausted at this point. He still wanted to say something, but Qi Zuyan had already spurred her horse on and left. Qi Wei mounted his horse from his end and led his light cavalry to surround the ceremonial procession, then said to Han Cheng politely, "Commander, let's go." Even if Han Cheng was an important figure in Chu capital, he had no authority over the affairs of the Ministry of War and Ministry of Revenue. The Jin Wei could throw their weight around in Chu capital and other places, but to Qi Zuyan, they were of no threat. She was the commander-in-chief of Qidong's 5 commanderies troops. Qidong was her territory. Han Cheng had no say here. More so when the Empress Dowager herself even had to rely on the Qidong garrison troops now. Han Cheng bore a grudge deep down, but he could not let it show on his expression yet. All he could do was smile at Qi Wei and get on his horse to continue with the journey. Hua Xianji returned to her senses, her heart still palpitating from the fleeting glimpse of the stunning sight earlier. The curtain of the carriage swayed, and she tilted her head slightly to look through the gap, where she saw the back view of Qi Zuyan as she rode her horse ahead. Qi Zuyan was tall and slender. She must have made a special effort to dress up today. She had to ride a horse, so she did not have her hair up in a high bun as was common in Chu capital, but she still looked very elegant. There were no hair accessories like hairpins, double-edged fine-toothed comb, or exquisite pearls in her hair, making her appear all the more elegant and tidy. She was a pretty one. Hua Xianji still wanted to continue sizing her up, but then she saw her look back abruptly. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Xiao Qiye said they would send congratulations, but he still had someone prepare a gift. Xiao Jiming also had to prepare a gift on his end. Their relationship with Qidong was not all that bad, after all. Even if it was a little delicate at the moment, the friendship was still there, especially with Qi Zuyan. The wedding between the Hua and Qi clans was a declaration of the temporary victory of the Empress Dowager in the tussle for power in Chu capital. The Grand Secretariat could only first stabilize the heir apparent to the throne before they had the latitude to continue with the contention for dominance. It was at this moment that Xue Xiaozuo made a wise decision. He submitted a memorial to negotiate with the Grand Secretariat and had Zhang Qingshan released back to Juexi, thereby securing the Grand Aries in Chu capital. ******. Yao Wenyu sat in the wheelchair and let Jiao Tianya push him outdoors. The weather in Tse province had been rather bad lately. Autumn rain was on its way, and the scenery in the outskirts of the city was even more bleak and desolate. Yao Wenyu had been out of the sun for many days, and right at this moment, he seemed to have become a jade laid bare out there for all to see. "It's just as you expected." Shenzequan looked at the vast expanse of autumn leaves and the solemnly quiet lands as he stood at Yao Wenyu's side. He really transferred Zhang Qingshan back to Juexi. "I originally thought Zhang Qingshan ought to have gone to Huai province even if it was to suppress Tse province." In a rare moment today, Zhou Gui was wearing a body-fitting outfit, having also ridden his way here on horseback. He wiped his sweat and said, "Loxia Pass is close to Quan City, and Quan City is the native hometown of the Shui clan. It's only to be expected for him to be worried. I didn't think he would really be willing to send Zhang Qingshan back to Juexi." Holding the cat in his sleeve, Yao Wenyu said, "It's because of the geographical location of Loxia Pass and Quan City. It's inevitable that both of you would have such concerns. Going by the present situation, putting Zhang Qingshan in Huai province would be the most advantageous to Xue Xiaozuo and the Shui clan." The solace of Shenzequan's boots trod across the fallen leaves. He stood still and lost himself in his thoughts. If Zhang Qingshan was transferred to the prefecture of Huai province, he would, firstly, be able to challenge Tse province and obstruct the trade route between Tse province, Cha province, and Huai province from taking shape. Secondly, he would be able to ensure that Quan City would be safe and sound, as well as join forces with Quan City to put pressure on Loxia Pass, and subsequently, Libei. These were all matters that Shenzequan could think of himself, and naturally, so could Xue Xiaozuo. Yet, he still forsook the safety of Quan City and chose Juexi, just like Yao Wenyu predicted. Xue Xiaozuo had Zhang Qingshan released back. Shenzequan's expression was grave. And this is what makes him tough to deal with. This maneuver not only meant that Xue Xiaozuo would restrict Libei's and Zongbo's development through the grains, but also that he did not give a damn about the personal gains and losses of the Shui clan. In other words, he harbored no selfish desires, which made him completely different from Hua Saiqian, Wei Huigu, and the others. What he sought was not benefits for one party. Zhang Qingshan takes a hard approach on policies, and his local governance is effective. There are rumors in Chu capital that he will not tolerate a thorn in his side, but in truth, it's quite the opposite. Yao Wenyu flexed his fingers and stroked the cat. Juexi has 13 cities, with 2 prefectures and 2 harbors. It's now a veritable granary of great Zhou. The Xi clan's business is by far its largest in Juexi, and even the waterways of the Hua clan in this city have to go through it. If the vice commander has been to Juexi before, you'd understand that Juexi's prosperity did not happen by coincidence. Zhang Qingshan is an extraordinarily broad-minded man who uses people regardless of their family status and social standing. He would never make excuses to decline in the face of major matters, but he also knows not to go too far when dealing with minor issues. He never lets go of all that he ought to have a firm grip on, and he never regrets all that he should relax his hold on. With such a provincial administration commissioner, it's not surprising for Juexi to swiftly get back on its feet after the natural disaster enduring the Xian era. Zhang Qingshan is such a person. He cited Xue Xiaozuo as his bosom friend in life, precisely because they shared the same political views and ambitions. Upon hearing this, Zhou Gui nodded. "I've long heard of the political achievements of these two people. When the Grand Secretary promoted Xue Xiaozuo to the Court of Judicial Review back then, no one in the imperial court opposed it at all. The vice commander has also read Xue Xiaozuo's essays on contemporary politics before. Yao Wenyu said. Does the vice commander still remember the Grand Tutor's wish? Shen Zequan knew it by heart, because he inherited Qi Huilian's knowledge and understood best what Qi Huilian wanted to do back then. After a moment of silence, he said, to unify the management of Great Zhou's household registries, to survey all the fertile farmlands in the realm, to consolidate the miscellaneous local taxes, and to restore the cash flow of the state treasury. Yao Wenyu looked at the mountains in the distance and said, these are what Xue Xiaozuo wants to accomplish. He and teacher are both striving for the same thing if you look at it on this point alone. Teacher has the support of Kongqiu, Senyu, and other various officials of humble backgrounds, while Xue Xiaozuo has the support of the industrious and practical action takers with Zhang Qingshan at the lead. He's not alone. But could this be achieved with the current Great Zhou? It took Qi Huilian many years to implement the registration of households into the census registry in the local areas. Why was the Eastern Palace framed for rebellion? Because the next on the list was the surveillance of farmlands. The misappropriation of the commoners' fields in the 8 cities of Chu capital was rather severe. Once the policy was implemented, the noble clans not only had to return the commoners' fields and receive their sentence according to the law, they also had to bear the land and field taxes themselves. Killing the crown prince would prevent the policy from being implemented. Hai Lianji taught Li Jianheng the way he did to treat the problem at its source. He hoped Li Jianheng would be able to maintain a tight hold over the Grand Secretariat and wield his authority to make changes and overhaul the system from top to bottom. For this, he was willing to charge valiantly forth in Li Jianheng's place. But Li Jianheng could not do it. Xue Xiaozuo realized this way earlier than Hai Lianji did. He instantly abandoned Li Jianheng, no longer holding out any hope for this emperor, or even the Li clan. He needed a new emperor, one who could sit quietly on the throne. It had to be the case that this emperor would never interfere with the Grand Secretariat, nor sway left and right in the struggle between those from the noble clans and those of humble backgrounds. Even more so, he would not be partial towards the frontier with heavy military presence for the sake of so-called brotherhood. And so he found Li Jianting. But a plan like this would take too long. Chu capital was changing every single moment. Shen Zequan himself was a variable. In Chu capital, he was at best an abandoned pawn on Xue Xiaozuo's game board, one who could be offhandedly discarded after dealing with Shi Hongxian and Wei Huige, wiped out in that heavy downpour just like Xiao Qi. Xue Xiaozuo had no selfish desires, and this was what was so terrifying about him. Xue Xiaoyi had repeatedly ridiculed, mocked, and even humiliated Xue Xiaozuo, but Xue Xiaozuo did not kill off this legitimate eldest brother of his because in his eyes, Xue Xiaoyi was not important at all. Dead or alive, he made no difference, just like the dust at his feet. He wanted to kill Qi Huilian, because Qi Huilian was the tutor of the Emperor of Great Zhou. He wanted to kill Yao Wenyu, because Yao Wenyu was a phenomenal talent. He gave these two men the chance to choose before, but in the end, both of them turned him down. Releasing a strategist, who could not be used for his own purpose back into the wild was akin to gifting the world's famous sword to another. And it was only by killing them that he would be able to eliminate the roots of troubles down the road. A solitary wild goose flew across the horizon. Frost and fog gradually materialized, and a hue of colors washed over the cold blighted forest. It was getting more and more chilly by the day. Qiao Tianya casually covered Yao Wenyu with a thick coat. They were still in the forest. Shen Zequan tapped his folding fan against his palm, his gaze following Hanjian Mountains southward as he said, when Xue Xiaozuo was teaching the heir apparent to the throne, he likely did not think that Great Zhou would have collapsed to such an extent in just a mere few years. There is no one in this world who can take every single thing into account and come up with a foolproof strategy. The military provisions incident that forced Lu Guangbai into rebelling is a variable. Kedong missed the opportunity to hunt down Cian because they lost Lu Guangbai, and Chu capital went from besieging Xiaoqiye to releasing a tiger back to its mountain. The events that befell men were always unexpected, be it Lu Guangbai, Shenzequan, Xiaoqiye, Yao Wenyu, or even any of the other nameless faces out there. Heaven gave every person a different challenge, and in climbing back to their feet and surviving, those who had initially been trapped in their circumstances had all fought and broken free of their shackles. Turbulent times meant that the order of the world no longer existed. Anyone could fight for a slice of the pie if they so wished. If there were those who clung onto the fragments that were already broken, then there would also be those who brandished their weapons to break through the impasse. This was the era of treacherous ministers and traitors. It was in the midst of the thick fog when the raindrops fell. Fei Sheng opened up an umbrella and held it over Shenzequan. They reined in their horses and made their way back. Autumn had finally come to Tse province. The wind sent the sleeves of Shenzequan's robes billowing, nearly blowing away his blue handkerchief. At the same time Shenzequan grasped onto the handkerchief, the falling leaves dancing all over the sky passed by him. Yellow, withered leaves spiraled up in the wind, where the rain pelted at them, sending them falling at Xiaoqiye's feet. Gu Jin returned on horseback, waving a small flag as he shouted, "The bridle path ahead has collapsed. Master, we are trapped here." Xiaoqiye mounted his horse. Wu Ziu spurred his horse on forward from behind and braved the rain to say, "Zhao Hui's troops haven't arrived, and the Tudalong banner lies 10 li away from here. Hassan's cavalry is nearby. The grain wagons are too heavy." Tantai Hu wiped off the rainwater. "Unless we abandon the provisions and take a detour, we are bound to come across Hassan's cavalry tonight. There are insufficient supplies at the battlegrounds. If this batch of provisions falls into Hassan's hands, his lordship is going to get hit hard." Chen Yang tugged at the reins, his face red from the cold. "We can stay here but master has to go." Based on the military orders a few days ago, Xiaoqiye, on making a detour from Dying to the north, had to go past the bridle path of the original Changzhou camp to first provide supplies for Zhao Hui, then head towards the battlegrounds to replenish Xiao Fangxiu's stock. When they arrived at this spot, they should theoretically be received by Zhao Hui's 3 great training divisions of Liuyang, but Zhao Hui had not appeared. Meng was also unable to fly too far to carry out reconnaissance due to the rainstorm today. It was as though Xiaoqiye had been blindfolded. The expression in Xiaoqiye's eyes was unbelievably calm as he gave free rein to the raindrops trickling across his cheeks and commanded in a grave tone over the noise, "Turn around. We're heading for the Tudalong banner." End chapter.